morning, Brett. Welcome to 21 days. Hashtag
Yeehaw,
21 day challenge.
Yep, and the challenge has started, Mike.
Yes.
Damn, I'm excited.
Well, I'm
Does this mean
excited.
we have to work on weekends? Do we have to work on weekends, Mike?
You know what? If we were really smart, these are videos. We can produce them tomorrow morning before the weekend. So it's okay.
Hold on. Isn't tomorrow morning a Saturday? You're still saying I have to work on a weekend.
Tomorrow's Friday, dude.
Oh, okay. Good luck. Enjoy your 22 days isolation. You know, today's a Friday, hey?
Oh, okay. Right, whatever. Move swiftly on.
That's definitely what's the future then.
It's definitely what's the future then. No, absolutely. So welcome to What's the Future. We're talking about how to get yourself into the cloud, which really is about how to make AI work. And I think before we actually even get into the technical details, let's understand why. And let's understand the context of why you need to do this. Because I don't think a lot of people and a lot of businesses really understand this why. What do you reckon, Brett?
Yeah, you're right, Mike, because everyone thinks, oh, I've got to go to the cloud because it's the way to go digital. Guys, you know what? Going cloud, using all these modern technologies, there's really one key reason, and that's that there is return on investment.
Totally.
So you've got to put your business hats on. This is not just a tech session. This is why on earth would you go digital? And we're going to start with that. Start with the business reason.
Cool. I'm going to bring up a screen. I'm going to share my desktop here so we can all actually see. There we go. So what we've done here is we've just created a very cool little slide that is actually at the front of most of the work that we do. And, you know, most companies are sitting on-prem at the moment, and these are pretty consistent costs, and these are costs that are over a 3-year period, and the numbers are illustrative. You know, you can obviously plug your numbers into this, and everyone debates this cost versus on-prem versus cloud. But Brett, when we look at the on-prem numbers, they're pretty consistent. And I think also more importantly, the return on investment deteriorates over time because cloud is subject to, on-prem is subject to the law of entropy. Things deteriorate. What are your thoughts on this?
I agree with you, Mike. That line at the bottom, we're essentially taking a 3-year CapEx investment. We're dividing it out. And this is generally for a medium-sized business. So, you know, it remains consistent. Your CFO wants to see that, but you're right, the technology is degrading. But what it's also doing is it's locked you in and you're not able to see the benefit of Moore's law.
Absolutely.
So that alone is a problem when it comes to innovation, because every 18 months, things are doubling and the price is halving. You've locked yourself, in this case, for 3 years. Usually it's a 5-year lock-in. So guys, here's 2 cycles of missing a doubling of innovation and a halving on price. Who on earth would want to miss out on that?
Absolutely. And I think if you're struggling to understand that Moore's law principle, just understand the exponential nature of how the coronavirus is spreading. But flip this to costs and understand that your cost and performance are also going to deteriorate just as much as things accelerate. So Brett, take us through the cloud costs then. Let's compare what a cloud would look like and how the costs actually work on the cloud over a 3-year period.
So hit the next slide, Mike.
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sure.
Oh, Mike. Hey, fat fingers.
Very fat fingers.
So what we basically do is we map out your adoption of cloud. And what you see is it generally takes most medium to large size businesses about 6 months to lift themselves off their on-site world and put themselves into the cloud world. So what you'll see in the first 2 quarters, those are divided up into quarters, is that the cloud slowly ramps up. And the reason why is you're starting to put equipment up there. And it gets to a point where it reaches peak. Now, peak is because what you've done is you've literally just lifted the entire environment that you were running on site and you put it into the cloud. Guys, it works in any cloud, whether it's AWS, Azure, or Google. I love talking to guys about Google because I think everyone thinks it's this mystical thing that, you know, maps and all these things run on. It still runs on Linux and Windows.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're lifting the same kit. It's not some special voodoo magic. Same thing for Amazon. So yeah, you're going to lift it up there, guys. And also don't believe all this hype that cloud is more expensive. It is more expensive if you do not structure and architecture it right. If you just throw everything up there and let everyone fire up whatever they want and you put no controls, and of course it's going to get expensive. Just like if you had to open your books and say, buy whatever hardware you wanted, that would get expensive too. So if you put in the right controls, you'll see it reaches a peak. In this case, it gets to about 500,000. And then it starts dipping. And the reason why it starts dipping is when you're on the cloud, the machines are far more modern, Moore's law. So instead of lifting the same machine that you usually have, you reduce the number of cores, you reduce the RAM. And trust me, guys, it fires a lot quicker. We've done 1 million benchmarks. When we run it against, say, a 64 core machine with 126 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of RAM, you think that's a big machine. Well, when it's in the cloud and you're running, say, your reporting, those reports that might have taken 19 hours to do in those big monstrous machines can literally take 45 minutes on a 2-core, 4 gig RAM machine when it's in the cloud.
Okay, you're getting a bit technical now, Brett.
Sorry, Mike.
You confused me.
I get excited about that.
No, you
so
do.
Once it's there, but once it's there, Mike, note, you're always optimizing. You're always reducing. You start seeing the effects of being able to move quickly and adapt.
So you've got to understand your strategy going onto the cloud. And the critical thing here is your machinery that you're putting all your data on is going to improve over a period of time, whereas your on-prem machinery is actually going to deteriorate. And if you're optimizing your data and structuring it properly on the cloud, you're going to wind up generating massive, massive savings over a period of time.
Yeah, so let's have a look at those savings, Mike.
Absolutely. And the great thing about these savings, and certainly when we speak to a lot of our clients, what the savings does is it unleashes and opens up a whole lot of new opportunities within the organization. And it depends on your type of organization, of course, because what the savings does is you can go back to your CFO, or if you're the CFO, you can look at this and say, okay, cool, I'm not going to increase your IT spend over the 3-year period, but you've actually got to drive innovation through the savings that you achieve, which is a great strategy because it's forcing you to optimize. It's forcing you to drive and create those efficiencies within your organization. So over this period of time, the savings become absolutely huge to you. Have you got any further thoughts on this, Brett?
Mike, you've nailed it on the head. Take that money now and start doing really interesting things like preparing yourself for the world of AI.
Absolutely.
You've never had the budget before. It's difficult to quantify it. Clouds all of a sudden opened up all the spare budget. And I know what everyone's going to say, but I've done an upfront investment of 5 years. The other strategy is you've got a lot of kit that is nearing its end of life. Majority of your kit's nearing end of its life. So look at the stuff that's already nearing end of life and you move that up. The stuff that you've still got to pan out and you've made that 5-year investment, you're welcome to keep it. Maybe use it as spare infrastructure. But the reality is that fast depreciates, especially against Moore's law. So take that savings, and guys, this is a real example. This is a real example of what we've seen in a customer. And they're now able to do a lot with it. And instead of always being the IT budget, the IT department that's squeezed on budget, and there's not much we can do because we always have to pay for our SQL licenses. By the way, a big part of this cost saving strategy is get yourself off SQL. That is crazy, guys. It's usually half of your IT infrastructure budget is going towards SQL.
Totally. Absolutely. But I think also, Brett, your point that you're making here is we can drive innovation through the savings, but also you've got a hybrid strategy between cloud and on-prem. So you're not losing the investments that you've already made, but you are now modernizing where you need to go to. You're starting to lay the foundations to driving AI. And I just want to step into the next thing here because there are a couple of steps that we need to go through. In terms of how you've got to adopt yourself and this cloud adoption strategy that you've got to adopt, there's definitely a technology component, very clear, and you can see it in the numbers. But there's also a people and a process part of this. This is not just about technology. And in fact, many of these adoption strategies fail because there's not enough understanding around how people need to redefine the way that they work, and they need to change how they see things, because what cloud brings is a whole new opportunity on things that are possible in your organization. And you've got to change how people do things on a day-to-day basis, and you've got to create a deeper understanding of what is possible. And you've got to restructure how people think, or you've got to open up how people think. And that's why we've created this motto, rethink, rebuild, make it work. And then obviously the process side of this is also just as important, and it does redefine the processes. And in many cases, it also simplifies the process, hey, Brett, because a lot of what the governance that sits in cloud is sorted out for you. I mean, let's just take Google. I mean, all of them are the same. They've got hundreds of security specialists sorting out the security around your data. You've got one, maybe two security officers. Google's got thousands, and you've got access to those thousands of engineers and security specialists immediately.
Nailed it, Mike. What I love about process, this entire process is really about reducing friction within your organization.
Yes. Cool. Let me bring up the next one here, Brett, the route to modernization. You want to kick in on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, this example is GCP. Probably half of our business is GCP and the other half is AWS. And we do spend a lot of time doing lifts and shifts. And the sales technique usually starts with, I want to do AI. But in order to do it, we work all the way backwards. So we're going to start at the front, essentially. And the first step in the first quarter is really about lifting and shifting. It's the migration. It's dull, it's boring. You're lifting the same problems that you have on site, you're lifting it up into the cloud. The benefits are you get a stable network, you get a secure network, and you get a hell of a lot more modernized tech that you're running on. So the stability is incredible and the performance is amazing. Very important to optimize straight afterwards. You're going to optimize on licensing, you're going to optimize on the size of the servers and what you're trying to do. And now if you're in charge of building some core assets in your business, whether it might be core banking, core insurance, core healthcare, core whatever it is, most people in medium businesses are building something that's really important to them, whether it's e-commerce, that part where you have a bunch of developers, you're going to start containerizing. You've seen it with Takealot. You've seen it with all the e-commerce guys. They used to fall over on Black Fridays. All of them have containerized their platforms. What that means is taking and moving your platforms off virtual machines into small packets of compute. Those small packets of compute, when there's lots of traffic, swarms out to deal with it and swarms back in when it's not being used. Very effective, very efficient, and it reduces your investments. So lift and shift, optimize your environment, and then work to containerize it.
So that brings up really the opportunity to build the AI optimization process here, or the machine learning optimization. But just one point on the numbers, they correlate to the processes above there. Hey, Brett?
Correct. So as you're doing each process, that's how you're getting more and more savings. A good point to note, Mike, is that often this is based on your existing compute requirements. Your compute requirements will grow.
Absolutely.
So, here you're talking about the data pipelines. As soon as you've got your stuff in the cloud, whether it's in the cloud or not, you can create pipelines. Pipelines are the new way of ingesting data, and it's ingesting data real time. Because at the moment, you've got data sitting in these silos that are run in batches. Very big problem when it comes to getting clean data. That we create the clean data pipelines that then pull into a big data environment. When that's there, you can start working on your visualization and dashboards, but more importantly, you can start working on the machine learning algorithms. Now, that also is a challenge, and we spend a lot of time on helping organizations usually take an idea from inception to a fully fledged trained model. Usually takes about 3 months, but if you build the AI process, you're able to shrink that down to days, if not hours. What's the next one, Mike?
There we go. AI personalization. Sorry, Brett, carry on.
So once you have that process done, that's great because you've got your data scientists working really hard. We're a bunch of data engineers. We essentially operationalize everything. but suddenly your business can be AI driven. Whether it's the dashboards that you're running, they now have a predictive capability so you can make better decisions. You're able to find the efficiencies within your processes and reduce the friction. That creates this incredible engagement, whether it's with your staff, with new technologies, or with your customers. And it all boils down to one thing, Mike.
What's that? Personalization.
Trusted scale.
Trusted scale. Absolutely. Absolutely. Which makes it really exciting, Brett, because I think it changes how you're able to build value and relationships with your customers and create that value in a near real-time framework. Sorry, I stumbled there a bit, but yeah.
No, but you're right. Our endpoint is to enable our customers to build a trusted relationship with their customers, preferably using any channel. But what we're seeing is everyone's moving digital now. So that means you have to do it in a scalable way. It's no longer chucking a huge call center at this problem. It's about automating as much as you can across as many different channels and reducing the friction in your business.
In other words, it's about scaling your data.
Scale it.
Scale it. All right, so that gives us a very nice overview of why you need to embrace this route to modernization. And I think when we look at that picture, it kind of gives you a cloud roadmap in a very nice overview, giving you values. And I'll share the picture in the notes. But it gives you a very clear ROI framework, but also in terms of a broader process on how you need to go about doing this. So for a lot of the arguments when we're doing a kind of almost apple versus orange comparison between on-prem versus cloud, it's very easy to get caught up in the nuances of it. And it's often a very subjective argument. I mean, it's, cloud's more expensive versus on, you know what? You've got to go through the process and you've got to have a clear strategy and you've got to understand why you are doing this. And this is certainly, we'll go through the how over the next kind of 21 days.
Right. And I think it's important you must go do it. Go benchmark it. Guys, like a benchmark takes 3-4 days. And you can benchmark all the cloud providers. We're doing benchmarks every month. We're doing sets of benchmarks across all the cloud providers. What we generally see, it's a race between GCP and AWS. I'm sorry, Azure, but you guys have a lot of catching up to do. Your pricing is hectic. Your networking costs are. But again, it does suit some CIOs. You just want to keep everything Microsoft. For the last 30 years, they've done Microsoft. Good for you.
And it's fine. Brett's not being critical. It just, so you know. So Brett, I tell you what I do want to go into in the next session is really understanding the difference between on-prem versus cloud from a more technical point of view. Because for me, that was a pretty clear, critical understanding, just in terms of how they are structured. Because I mean, we've given the migration, the adoption framework here, kind of the frameworks to the strategy. In the next session, I'd really like to just understand the difference between on-prem as a structure and a service versus cloud as a structure and a service, and what's managed, what's not managed, and the impact that has on your staff.
Perfect. So that will be day 2 of our 21-day challenge.
Fantastic, guys. Please, if you have any questions, you want us to dig into anything, please drop them into the comments below. Get hold of us on either Brett or my Twitter profile, Twitter handle, or LinkedIn profile, or just get hold of us. If you're watching this video, you'll know where to get hold of us. So, lekker.
Ciao, bye.
Cheers then.